Awesome, you're recording. Thank you, young man, young woman, young human, young misgendered thing. Sorry. Ooh, it's terrible. Okay, so got it. And would you mind giving me controls that I can share screen? Awesome. Good, good, good. Ready? Awesome. Thank you. Alex, big solution to all problem. Okay. All right. Now I think, I think I'm sharing no, that's not what I want to share. I want to share actually I'm going to stop that. I want to share the entire screen, not just the application window. There we go. Okay, and I wish I could keep y'all's cams bigger, but that unfortunately is not an option for me. Okay. So I found it particularly interesting that we were beginning the class for Sigil 4.0 at ground zero, and I wanted to make that pun and have that recorded. Thank you very much, recording. And so do you guys have something to write notes with and on? Yes? I must hear yes.
Yes, I do.
Yes.
Awesome.
As usual.
Good, good. Awesome. I want the chat window open. Okay, so I am monitoring chat as well. So I think we have one person not visualized on cam, and I think that is Chelsea. So Chelsea, can you respond in there's Chelsea. Hi, Chelsea, awesome. And you have something to take notes, is that correct?
Yeah.
Awesome, perfect, good, good. Beyond being able to take notes, you will also need, where is my, it's not there. One moment, please. Half an hour to get ready. I don't even have my. All right. Okay, all right. Okay. Okay, kiddos. All right, my friends. Okay. In addition to whatever it is that you're going to be writing your notes in, you will need a sheet of blank paper. Okay. We're going to use both sides of this blank paper. So the first side is going to be for your sigil. And on the second side, on the back of it, you're going to draw 2 lines to separate the sheet into 3 columns. Now it's a little hard to see because I'm going to take off the filter for a moment. I know there's a way to take the filter off. Blur. Yep, right there. Okay, so you should be able to see now. You want 3 columns on the back of the page. Okay, and please take notes about this practice. This will be the practice for all of this series of classes. We will always, with each sigilization, we will always have a sheet with 3 columns on the back and a blank on the front. And this will be for actually drawing your sigil during class. Okay, so those are the other than something to take notes and scribble, and something upon which separately hopefully unlined paper or graph paper, whichever you feel more empowered with for understanding how you want to create a line, right? Then you will need the page, 2 sides, 3 columns on one side. That's it. You can even print one out or make one as a template that you can use over and over again. Now, as I said, one side, the blank side, is going to have your sigil. The other side with the 3 columns are going to be 3 columns, one for journaling each time you cast the sigil. So you'll do magic with your sigil, and we'll talk about that in a minute, 3 times in a 7-day period. And it works like a clock. 1 day off, then a casting with journal, then 1 day off, then a casting with journal, then 1 day off with a casting with journal, so that you have bookended each of these castings of your sigilization with a day off. So if you start like on a Sunday, awesome, you take Sunday off. You do your first casting on Monday, you take Tuesday off. Wednesday you cast, Thursday off. Friday cast, Saturday off. That way in that 7 days, you have 3 separate castings of your sigil, 3 different spells, the same sigil, and you journal each time you cast. Okay? Awesome. Are there any questions about that part? We'll talk about casting in a bit. We good? Please say yes. Awesome. Very good.
Sorry, I had me on mute.
Yep. I like vocalizing yes, because then it's unambiguous to everyone in the room. Okay, so my name is Shentat, and I'll give you a little bit about me. Good God, I've been studying the craft since I was 9. I'm 55 now. I carry several initiations into various traditions of American traditional witchcraft and Wicca, and have taught the craft in basics class and in coven settings for on my own about 8 or 9 years, and then co-teaching with other initiates for about 25. So there's a little bit of experience there. We incorporated our coven. I run a coven with my wife. Her name is Jade. She's also an initiate in a couple of the same traditions I am, and a couple of her own. And we incorporated our coven in 2002, and have been running coven with our own our students who initiated since then. So that's a little bit about me. Let's talk about, so we've talked about required supplies. We've talked about who I am, how this class is going to work. So there are a bunch of materials available to you that I provided you for each one of the classes in the series. And the series itself, for the sake of an overview, is 10 separate sigils, an intro class, and then a summary class. So 11 sigils, intro, summary. You have dropped in on the last of the sigils, the sigil of 0, and there is a summary class beyond this in this series. Then the series repeats. So there have already been, prior to this class, a sigil of 10, a sigil of 9, a sigil of 8, a sigil of 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. 1 was last week. There will be a 0, and then there's going to be a summary class. And the summary class is what I call the best of Big Chief. So if we were to say that this sigil journal that you're going to create containing all 11 of your sigils from 10 all the way down to 0 are a Big Chief folder. So back when I was in grade school, we used a red booklet called a Big Chief book to learn penmanship, and had two big broad lines and a dotted line in the middle, and had 4 of those per page, right? And I had a great penmanship teacher who had us use the Big Chiefs to journal, as a daily journal. And then at the end of her class, she wanted everyone to take one of those journal entries and transform it into a presentation. And that's what we're doing here. We're taking all of your journal work that you've done through the series of the classes and review them before the final review class, and pull out highlights, important points, power words, things that manifested, things that surprised you, something that you might have learned, and create a presentation at the end that you would share with the rest of the class that takes certainly less than 10 minutes, certainly less than 3 minutes. 1 to 2 minutes is perfectly fine. And then an open space where everyone can share ideas, thoughts. If they feel the same way you do on something, they can claim community with you and say, wow, I had the same kind of experience and it was this way. And then a dialogue can begin. Okay. So that's kind of the whole larger scheme of how the series works. To give you some understanding about what a sigil of 10 is or a sigil of 9 is, I'm going to go ahead and show you some classical examples of what a sigil looks like. So here's a mnemonic sigil with a circle, and in it is enclosed a unicursal 9-lined star or 9-pointed star. This was used in this case as a mnemonic to understand the cycles of Venus in its travel through the night sky. Other sigils. Here's a sigil of my own creation that may look familiar to some of you who've done some ceremonial magic, right? This sigil represents the 10 spheres and 32 paths of the Kabbalah. There are other more personal.
Hi.
Hi,
Sorry,
Tara.
we had somebody join. Continue. I'm so sorry.
We did. We had many people join. So we're going back and we're doing a little bit of backfill for what is this class? What is it about? What is a sigil? That kind of stuff. Yeah, so let's look at another sigil. Here's a very personal one. This one is actually a piece of manifestation magic. So I wanted a deeper connection with several entities, Melektaus, Urzuli, and Lucifer, with set as a coordinating god for the energies of all of them. And so I created this sigil that incorporates not only letters from the Jewish alphabet, but traditional symbols from Egyptian and other pantheons, the actual signs for Lucifer set in a Waz scepter, peacock feather of Melektaus, the sacred Ursa Major, Ursa Minor, the sacred constellations, 2 of the gods referenced, the Veve of Urzuli, all into one glyph or drawing. So that kind of leads to, all right, so all of these are line drawings. Yes, a sigil, first and foremost, is a line drawing. That should be in your notes. Okay, now, as you can see, some of these get incredibly complex with hieroglyphs, hermetic signs, other languages, the names of demons. These are actually Moloch, Nehemiah, Lilith. These are actually entities in the Goetia. And so they are considered lesser and greater demons in magic and can be called. Here is another meditational sigil that can, so it's a sigil within a sigil, isn't it? You have a sigil on the outside and you have a sigil on the inside with sacred numerology incorporated as well as hieroglyphics. Do your sigils need to be like this? Yes, they can be. No, they do not need to be. What I wanted to do was I wanted to share the practice of sigilization with everyone without deep complexity or immersion in a magical practice. I want to make it simple for you. So what that means when it comes to this series of classes is that your sigil of 10 is simply you get to draw on a page 10 connected lines. That's it. The sigil of 9 will be 9 lines, all connected. The sigil of 8, 8 lines, all connected. Okay. Some of the sigils that have come out of this work are incredibly, I need to turn the blur off again. Darned it. There we go. Are incredibly simple. They can be wavy lines, straight lines, pointy lines, curlicue lines. Any kind of line at all is appropriate for your sigil, as long as they come together. And I've included for you in some of the class materials, I know I included a whole brainstormers, this folder called brainstormers, which gives you some ideas of how your lines can look. Now, this is the Jewish alphabet and very beautiful when put together to form a sigil. There are other alphabets that are much more kooky and beautiful and contain incredible, like, just here's the Elder Futhark. If you already work with runes, right? Then here's 3 lines, here's 5 lines, here's 3 lines, here's 2 lines, here's 1 line. You can incorporate them into your work, right? I wanted to show you Theban, which I love dearly. To my heart, this is the smell and sound of witchcraft, is the Theban alphabet. It was one of the first magical alphabets that became popularized through the books written by the founders of almost every witchcraft tradition currently being practiced. Other alphabets look very like Middle Eastern and gorgeous in their own way, where draftsmanship and penmanship can be involved. And these I offer you for the sake of inspiration when you put your own pencil or pen to paper and start creating your own sigils. Okay. And sigils themselves, you know, the important part about them is they are an agent of change, personal change, and a way to manifest not only objects, situations, opportunities to meet people, opportunities in your life and job, opportunities, economic, a way to shift your consciousness so that you yourself can see or recognize those opportunities. And the way that we actually use them is we build an intent, right? You can use a card draw, it could be something you already know or an ongoing desire, but one that remains within the theme of the week. There will be a theme for each of these castings, a theme for 10, which is going to be about resonance with complexity, a theme of 5, which is overcoming hardship, a theme for 4, which will have to do with partnership, a theme for 6, which has to do with material support, a theme for 8, which will have to do with success, right? And then create your sigil. The journal entries and the bid chief review will be at the end of the course, and cast your sigil. Now, I'm going to stop for a minute. I just fed you guys with a fire hose. So let's all level set expectation, right? The way this class works, you'll come on. I'll talk for a while. I'll show you a bunch of things. We're going to read some stuff. Then you're going to put your pen to the paper. You're going to draw a sigil for your intent. Okay. All of the talking and the context surrounding this that leads up to it that I'm going to offer you will be esoteric lore. It'll be books that you can review and read on your own. It'll be imagery. It'll be tarot. It'll be inspired by any number of other occult systems that lead into the number that we're working with. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Okay. You put your pen to paper, you'll make those in a class of 4 lines. In a class of 3, 3. In a class of 10 lines. In this particular class, we're going to be doing 0 lines. How do you make a sigil with 0 lines? It's a mystery. Okay, I'll let you know there is not going to be a great deal of variety in our sigils like other classes. But it'll be awesome. So if you want to, and like Alex said, previous classes are recorded and available on the website. Where are they on the website, Shintat? Okay, if you come to this page, the Praxis page on Divination Academy, then you will find Practical Sigilization Class Outline, which is this document right here, which gives you all of the themes that we'll work with for each class in the series, and an additional link to this Google Doc folder with all materials in it, including the brainstormers, including, you'll see like 2-line sigil, crook and flail. So this was part of the content that we actually discussed and is part of the inspiration for the Sigil of 2 class. We're working in the Sigil of 0 class. So these are the materials that we're going to cover today. You can see already that the Fool card is in there. We're going to talk about the cup and the crown. We're going to talk a little bit about chakras. We're going to have a bunch of different tables with information in them, as well as some glyphs of the tree of life. I'm going to augment that with some previous materials from another class. And yeah, you can also see in that class outline an overview, a reminder of the actual practice here at the bottom. Yes, here. The 2 different methods for casting, talking points, some things about the theory of magic, and books that I suggest you read if you want to pursue a further practice in using sigils for magical manifestation. Okay, so there's all of that. Questions right now? Let's take a moment. Are there any? Okay, I'm going to take silence to mean no. There are two methods of casting. So remember I said once you create your sigil based on your intent, you will cast it 3 times. And each time you cast it, you'll journal. So the journaling, by the way, can happen directly after you cast. It can happen a day after you cast. It can happen in the morning after you cast. It can happen when you wake up in the middle of the night terrified from a nightmare, and it's related to your sigils, so you journal it. But the casting itself, how do you cast a sigil, Shedtat? Here's how. There are 2 methods that I'm going to offer you today to cast a sigil. And each of these methods, both of them, have a provenance that you can read about in incredible depth in the Voodoo Gnostic Workbook. A gigantor workbook of ceremonial and chaos magic. Okay.
Can you say the name of that workbook one more time?
Sure can. It's the Voodoo, Voudon, Gnostic Workbook.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You can also, as an augmenting text, look at The Magician's Companion. For the work that we are doing today on Zero, I would highly encourage, and I've said this before, The Shining Paths. The Shining Paths. The author of this, I'm going to type it in the chat for you. I think it's like in its 10th or 11th imprint. It doesn't go out of print. It's that good. I would also refer you to some of the books that we're going to be using for today's material. The Book of Thoth. The author of this Egyptian Tarot is Aleister Crowley. And of course, his compendium work, Magic, Book 4, Aleister Crowley. And lastly, a tarot system called Liber T. This is what the back looks like. Now, this Liber T Tarot is based on Lady Frida Harris's original Crowley Thoth deck. Only it has been augmented by the observations and journals of 30 to 40 years of use of that deck to really create a more robust image that includes a great deal of learned gnosis through practice in the form of symbolization. So I call it Crowley deck on crack. It's really an incredible deck that, and I've said this to Alex, and I say this to all my students, you can spend a lifetime learning about tarot, and so you will, and so you will, right? This deck is no exception. The levels and degrees of complexity that are expressed in each one image itself is a meditational exercise that could take years. Okay, that said, the 2 methods of casting, how do we cast a sigil? There are 2 methods that we're going to be using. The first one I call the box breath, just like breathing, box breath. Okay. And the box breath looks like this. I need everyone's attention. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. Hold. Inhale again. Hold. Exhale. Okay, you got the point with the sound. All of you into ESMR, you'll love that moment. What this really is about is that your inhale is the same length of time as you hold the air in your body, is the same length of time as you exhale all of the air from your body. And then inhale again and start the process all over again. Now, the way you can do this to measure the box, the size of the box, is count it. Inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it, 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it, 1, 2, 3, 4. A perfect box. Okay, the whole point of the box is to expand it. So it goes from a 4 count to a 6 count to a 10 count to whatever your body can tolerate without gasping for air on the bottom and without dumping air on the top. Now, what this will wind up doing as you expand it from a 4 count to a 5 count to a 6 count is it'll highly oxygenate your body. That'll feel a lot like hyperventilation unless you do this trick. Expand your aura. How do you do that, Shintat? You relax into it and you let yourself take up the space in the room. Don't close your eyes. Be engaged in your environment. This is, the head of my line of witchcraft. Anar says that in her book, White Wand, which is well worth reading, that magic is a martial art. And it is. It's a practice that creates an inner mystery to unfolding in you to take up that space. However, the martial art is martial art. So box breath, a 4 count breath, expand it to 5, expand it to 6, expand it to 7. And in the expansion, expand the amount of space that your energy bodies take up. All you have to do is put intention behind that, and it'll do it and ground you so that that buzzy high sensation of I'm hyperventilating will go away. And what you'll wind up getting in its place is a sense of deep, immediate awareness that is penetrative. So you'll hold a deeper awareness of your body and a deeper awareness of the space that you're occupying. When you get to the place where you have fully saturated the entire space you have to fill, and you feel like you can't carry anymore, and it's getting really complicated managing how much energy you have, and it's a lot and crackling off of your fingertips and your hair, and your eyeballs are crossing, and your sex is beginning to I really have to do something, and it's all vibrating. You will breathe in on your last inhale, hold it, and as you exhale, all energy staring into the sigil, by the way, the entire time. So the whole time you're box breathing, you're just staring at the sigil. When you exhale for the last time, you exhale through the sigil and turn it over so you can't see it. Close your eyes, relax, come to a normal breath and normal awareness of the room. Now, what this does on a metaphysical level, what are you doing on a metaphysical level? So physical level, all done, right? On a metaphysical level, what you're doing is you're taking power, energy, and intention and blasting it through the sigil into the universe. One of the things I tell my students at all times is the universe has no option but to prove to you any theory you hold very strongly about it. So essentially what you're doing is you're creating a map of what you want, what your desire is, and you're handing it to God. And you're saying 1,000 copies, please. And she has no choice but to say, oh, you did your homework. Okay, you know what you want 1,000 copies on. Here, let me make that for you. Part of what you should be watching for in your journaling the next day is really how did this request of the universe play? What confirmations is my divinity presenting to me that prove that they were listening? And making 1,000 copies and dropping them down on you. Are we all up to speed so far?
Yes.
I have 1 yes,
Yes.
2 yeses. Tara and Sprinkle, are you with us?
Yep. I'm
Nope,
here.
you're
Yeah, I'm
here.
Yep.
You're with us. Okay. Sprinkle, you here? You all caught up?
Yep, I understand.
Awesome, awesome. There is a second method that we're going to be used that we can optionally use, and that is the masturbatory technique. You can use orgasm in the same way that you used a box breath. It is an enormous discharge of intention and energy, and you can push that through your sigil. Now, one of the ways that I find it easiest to do this is on your intimate partner through your masturbatory fantasy to emblazon your sigil on them. Is it their eyes? Is it a piece of jewelry that they're wearing? Is it a tattoo on their arm? Is it, come here, buddy, come on. Come on. You know, first, anyways, yes, if you can, that'd be awesome. So have the sigil be the object of your attention during your masturbation, all the way to the point where you cannot anymore control whether you're going to orgasm or not. At that exact moment, throw all of your intent into the sigil itself and fall back and enjoy your orgasm. It does the exact same tech. Pushes all of the intent and power and force that you just developed and built through the sigil itself, hands it off to the universe for manifestation. Okay, so either is usable. You can use either technique. If you want to use them both together, you'll find that one actually creates more tension in one direction, the other creates more tension in another. It's very hard to maintain them both. If you can do both pranayama and sex magic at the same time, you can actually boost the power being like forced through a sigil tremendously. So if you want to try them together, great, but don't do it to the point where you don't succeed at one or the other. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Awesome. Cool. So those are our methods. And these are the support materials that we have to use. They're all available to you through the Academy based on the links that would have been provided for you. And tonight, We've already been through the series from 10 all the way down through 1. 1 was last week. Today is 0. So we're starting with the sigil of 0, which means you will be making 0 lines on your page. Instead, you will make a point, a single point, a single dot. Now, one of the books, because, and my wife will kill me when she hears this, one of the books that I wish I could present to you is called Kutu. And not that. It is a grimoire and poem written by a brilliant magician named Andrew Chumley. And Kutub, The Point, is this book right here, which is missing currently from my own Coven library. Hopefully it finds its way back to me someday, is all about the power of 0. Qutub. And he takes it from what would they have spoken? The language of Gaul, the language of ancient Gaul. And it represented the, in its meaning, the world tree. So not the actual nodes of the tree, but the connectivity of the world tree. And Andrew Chumley saw the point as that place where, just as all esoteric students who become masters find that in the extension of a circle to include infinity, we find the point. It has 0 dimensions. It has one thing, and that's coordinates in space. It has place. So that's going to be the work of how we sigilize today. Where do you place your point? Okay. And we're going to do that in a quadrant system. So with a very, very light line, you can make, and you're going to erase that later, so please do it with pencil. We're going to draw a line from each corner of your page to each corner of your page, and that will create 4 triangles, right? So I drew diagonal and diagonal, and that gives me 4 pieces. We're going to put our point, our kutub, our world tree, in one of those 4 quadrants based on the work that you want to do, based on your intent. But we'll get there in a second. First, we're going to talk about what is 0. Now, 0 as a very concept entered our planet through Sumerian humans at about 4,000 years ago, 400 BC. Is that correct? Let me see.
Yes.
Yes, that's right. So in the 400s BC, the concept of 0 itself appeared for us as a true value. And then it spread from there, and several other cultures simultaneously discovered it on, well, not simultaneously, but independently discovered 0 on their own. So first in Sumeria, and second by the Maya in South America in the 300s AD, discovered 0. And then from there, it spread again. And the Italians picked up on it and they started doing mathematics. And then the philosophers of the scholastic school picked it up and they started understanding geometry and trigonometry using zero. And then it was picked up by other mathematicians and by metaphysicians. Now, I always say the power of the thing is in its nature. And one of the biggest problematic numbers for all true mathematicians is zero. Because it doesn't fit any of the rules. And if you apply the rules to zero, you wind up with nonsense. And yet without zero, you can't actually perform math, not in any sense we understand today. So it is still enigmatic. The first thing we should see when we know that we're talking about zero is a sense of the enigmatic. Now, what I'm showing you right now is just a picture of the chakras. We've all seen them. These aren't the only 7. There are various systems that deal with anywhere from 3 total chakras to 10 total chakras. And in tantric practice, the 9th chakra isn't even a part of the body. It sits up here, 6 inches above the body. And it's said to have a numeric equivalent of 0. The point at which all things come back to themselves in the union of all things. That should hopefully be a callback for Alex. We talked about the union of all things in the last class of 1. This, however, is the awareness of self in the union of all things. This is what Kabbalists would say is the point where the wheels meet the road, right? It's the point of the Fool card, the 0 in the upper arcana of the tarot deck. We all know that the Fool itself has absolutely manifested nothing, and yet has absolute and perfect potential. He is the moment before Big Bang. He is the substrate of space-time fabric that allows Big Bang to even happen. He's the weight and pressure of an unrealized singularity, bearing itself, bursting from the womb of God herself. You know, the first God to burst from the womb of his mother just to be was Set from ancient Egypt, the teacher of all magics. And what do we know about the Fool? That really all magic was already there and just needed the road, the situation, the memory to pull it all together. To that end, let me see, I'm going to do a little scrolling to find what I want to use as the next. No, we're going to read Eopan. Yes. So now this table, by the way, is from book 4. And what Crowley is doing for us is enumerating correspondences for placements on the Kabbalistic tree of life. These particular correspondences, Ein Sof, Ur, are those shells of creation as yet unmanifest beyond Kether, or knowledge and conversation with one's own holy guardian angel, or gnosis with one's own God soul. So if we could go past our own individual singular interface with God and get to a place where the whole college of the gods is even still below our awareness, to the place of the all and nothing, pre-creation to post big, if there's a big bang, big crunch. So from before Big Bang to after Big Crunch, and a view that not only sees but synthesizes every single detail of plenum from before the beginning to after the end, and can utter a single word of awareness: me, myself, I, we, us, they, that encapsulates our history and its history perfectly. It is zero. Ein Sof Ur. Beyond the mere ananda, or light shell of memory, into a shell of absolute truth. And what I meant earlier by here's where the wheels meet the road, you get higher and higher and higher in the level of enlightenment. Eventually, you're going to wind up thrown back down on the ground under your feet. That all of this awareness leads up to and back down to Malkuth, the bottom, the manifest, the simple gross material, the dense fabric of the universe. What really is being spoken is the mystic awareness of I am, you are, we are, all participants and part of the body of, and are God. Goddess, God. What I prefer is God herself, right? God herself. That way the gender fuck is already built in. You have what is typically taken as a male noun, God, and thrown herself into it. And frankly, I spell her H-I-R, so that it's not even human that we're talking about. We're talking about cosmic, non-gendered, absolute amazingness. Yeah, that. So when the wheels meet the road, when we wind up getting so absolutely high on our tree of enlightenment that we see things simply as they are and live in the manifest, the mystical experience is really the, and you know, people want to like pare down language and its meaning by inflating and tagging everything on it, right? When you throw a bunch of meanings on a word, it winds up meaningless. That's happened to mysticism and the mystical. What the mystical versus an ontological understanding of divinity, ontological and understanding of divinity is I have these attributes and I can claim them for the object, and then I can cognize the object. Whereas the mystical experience says this is not a cognizable thing, but it's an experienced thing. And the divine is that. So where we get from bridging all of these realities and esoteric truths back down to the reality of I have to clean the bathroom and call my mom is zero. Synthesized truth. I love that when Crowley put together his awesome list of gods, not only did he use these really horribly bastardized and terribly out of context and incorrect Egyptian deities, particularly Harpocrates, Amun, and Nuit being the point, but also he included a small selection of Hindu deities, the word Aum. Now, anyone who knows anything, who has done any bit of work on the provenance of Hinduism and its core philosophies knows that Aum is the sacred syllable, the first vibratory note that actually triggered the seed sounds, and the sounds themselves and the symphony of their vibration developed the less subtle forms, which then sank and became matter. But yes, the original substrate. Didn't I talk about zero being the substrate into which Big Bang could happen? So in many ways, there's a revealed truth in all of his inaccuracies, and that winds up quite true of a great deal of magic. Some simple correspondences for yourself: black diamonds, star sapphire, the dragon in the sense of the world worm, coiled at the center of the planet and coiled at the base of your spine and coiled at the center of the universe. Lotus and rose, the circle, which of course it resembles. And here, the most important part that I really wanted to get to, Western mysticism, the supreme attainment and a vision of no difference. What he means by that is a sense of metaphysical and moral magnanimity, that all things have a place and belong. Last week, we talked about this gorgeous piece of work that's I think it was I've forgotten it already. I always forgot it and have to look it up. Not the Cyprian Creed, but anyways, you are a child of the universe. You have a right to be here is the essence and two lines from this poem that are most crucial. And here again, we have that even beyond, and you notice that the cardinal one, right, union with God. So the mystical state that corresponded lower down on the tree was union with God. And above it, the supreme attainment, the vision of no difference. So I love how this was exemplified in a poem by Hafiz. Hafiz? Is it Hafiz, babe? The I was knocking on the wrong side of the door.
I don't know if it's your Hafiz or Rumi.
Rumi. It's Rumi. So Rumi, an incredible Sufi poet, which if you have not read Rumi's poetry, please read Rumi's poetry. It's unbelievable. In one of his poems, he describes an experience where in his longing for union with God, he finds God's house and he's knocking on the door, knocking on the door, knocking on the door, begging and begging and pleading to be let in. And then when he cries out in a final futile gesture, why, God says, turn around. And he turns around and God has been in the room with him the entire time. That moment of deepest realization that not only are you connected to your own divine source, but you are not different in any way from your own divine source, is the mystical realization that's being described by the number 0. So yeah, the condition of all life Remember, I talked about the substrate for Big Bang, the impartial vehicle, the empty vessel, the channel through which things can come, the possibility that is endless, probability that is absolute and certain. These are all the zero when they happen at the same time. Now, connecting this supernal realization, right? The fool on the tree of life, the fool who connects both the Tao Te and the yang energy of the universe, the fool who is our air, the air we breathe, and the mercurial lightning that transmits all thought and awareness and leaps off of the tree itself into past mere light and into absoluteness. I'm going to read to you a little bit, let it just wash over you. Know nothing. All ways are lawful to innocence. Pure folly is the key to intuition. Silence breaks into rapture. Be neither man nor woman, but both in one. Be silent, a babe in the egg of blue. Be yourself. Grow to bear the lance and the grail, wander alone and sing. In the king's palace, his daughter awaits you. In spiritual matters, the fool means idea and ideal, thought, spirituality, that which endeavors to transcend all things, not just earth. In material matters, it may, if badly dignified, mean folly, eccentricity, even mania, insanity, unhinged, unconnected, disconnected. Yes, that is only one of the many roads to Ein Sof Ur. The sudden impulse or the sudden impact coming from a completely strange quarter, all such impulses are right and rightly received for good or ill. It entirely depends upon the attitude of the querent. Now, here's something that I want to break away from here. This zero that we're talking about, which is the mystical experience, which is the Ein Sof or beyond light into pure awareness, beyond your own union with your own God, into a union with the absolute as the absolute, seeing the absolute. A holographic fractal of awareness that begins in your own DNA and expands and extends beyond itself to the entire manifest universe, to all consciousness in it, beyond that, to all divinity. A linked ladder of awareness, moving like an osmotic pump back and forth, has nothing to do with your projections. We always want to project onto. It's the easiest way for us to cognize things. Even our fetch in dream separates self from self to project onto self imagery and symbology that it can then reconsume to understand. The experience of zero has nothing to do with cognization or projection. It is absolute. I love what the Oracle says in the Neo trilogy of movies. No one can tell you you're the one, you just are. You just know it. Balls to bones. Zero is that. An absolute declarative knowledge that transcends knowing, that is to the point of being. Okay, please know that there are magical models off of each of these numbers, magical models, meaning ways of doing magic, and philosophies and metaphysical correspondences that you can find in any number of books that will help you kind of wrap your human mind and thought around nothingness, zero, and yet is zero really something? Yes, absolutely. It's before all of it and yet emerges through it, and anything that moves through it becomes itself nothing, and yet is limitless. It's the infinite, and yet is limitless light, limitless nothing, which is aware of itself. A couple of classes ago, I talked about the holy night and why we say the night before Christmas is the holy night. Only in the blackest of black can there be a miracle of light born. And this itself is its own self-awareness. Okay, we are not going to, I don't think we're going to dive into that. I do want to say this. If the greatest attainment of our work is beyond gnosis with God to true gnosis of self, capital S, which includes zero, Kutub, the point, and Kutub itself. You know, I didn't even dive into that, right? The world tree. Now, for the Celts of Gaul, the world tree was a connecting membrane between all the worlds, the world of the frost giants, the world of humans, the world of the Vanar, I think they were called, and the world of the bad guys, the frost giants, can't remember what they were called. And this membrane, you could travel. And what's my point? Oh, Kutub, yes, that's right. That in the point is the tree. In the greatest attainment, you can move between all of these realms. It is the crown of the magician and represents the attainment of their work. Yeah. And I think the last thing, there are other resources in here which you can avail yourself of. I think all of them are quite fun. I think the last thing that I'm going to do before we actually set pen to paper and give meaning to these 4 quadrants is we're going to share a little bit of the hymn to Pan. And this is the intro written by Sophocles, included by Aleister Crowley for his beautiful kind of core text. There were a few core texts of the Ordo Templi Orientis or the OTO, these ceremonialists, right? And Hymn to Pan was one of them. However, this is the intro that he found and added to it, I thrill with rapture. I soar on wings of sudden joy. O Pan, appear to us, O Pan, roving over the sea from the craggy ridge of snow-beaten Selene, king who makes dances for the gods. So the 4 quadrants. Pick any quadrant and put the number 1 in the corner. Pick any quadrant and put the number 2. Pick any quadrant, put the number 3. Pick any quadrant, your last one, and put the number 4. Number 1, I'm going to give you a meaning. Okay, and that's destruction. Two, or whatever is opposite to 1, creation. 3, so in between those two forces, expansion, and opposite it, contraction. Does everyone know what those words mean?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
Awesome. Think of these as forces at work. We are going to place a dot, hard, large dot, somewhere on this grid. That is going to be your sigil for the next 3 castings. This dot.
Should we put the dot in a specific place depending on the intention of whether or not we feel as though our intention is closer to destruction, contraction, expansion, or creation? Or do you? Yeah.
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 Okay.
I would say, here's how I want to say that. Yes, and.
Okay.
So the yes and, I want to add an and to that. And the and isn't meant to detract or change or alter what Alex and I had to say earlier about where to place your dot. What I am going to say is it should augment what she and I were talking about and add value to and ambiguity to and precise meaning to all at the same time. So is it about your intent that will determine your placement? Yes. Is it about your intuition and a wish or desire? Yes. Is it about a dream and a misremembered moment that needs to find itself through you? Yes. All magic is like a dreaming that dreams itself into being. If we lose the dreaminess of magic, it just becomes a boring method. Once you've picked it and you've drawn it, you know what those meanings are. You've done the work of the class. This is the class work. Now, here's the other caveat for this series of classes. This series of classes just only prepares you for the work. The work doesn't happen in this class. All that happens is a context and the transmission of a method. The work happens when you cast the sigil. There are always two truths in any witchcraft practice, in any neo-pagan practice, in any prayer that you're going to find in any occult tome. There is an outward or exoteric practice which is teachable, and then there is an esoteric inner mystery which unfolds based on the practice. What we're aiming at is the esoteric mystery that you are going to experience when you cast your sigil. Questions? Okay. Does everyone understand what they're going to be doing?
Yep.
Yeah. Awesome. 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 Sounds great, guys. So thank you. And, you know, granted, we only did a point this time, but if you decide to drop into the more of the series that we, and please do like scroll down through the posts. I think most of us have posted almost all, if not all, of the sigils that we've created for the classes at some point or another on the Divination Facebook page. Please do just scroll down, you'll see them. And some of them are amazingly beautiful. Some of them are incredibly simple. All of them should be for you. Yours should be for yourself. A little bit hair raising and terrifying at the same time that it's really intriguing and interesting and you want to dive into it, right? Just like all your magic should be. And you'll be able to see the variety that happens when more lines are included, though the class outline does very specifically give you an idea of the themes that each of those sigils will kind of wrap itself around. This one, incredibly high level, right? We're talking not just about the connection to God, we're talking about the connection to our God's God
Mhm.
here, right? So it's very meta now, hence the blue light. But other classes are different. You know, some are incredibly practical and it's really just about manifesting. Others are really about, I want to change the shape of my life and do that. So let's do that. And so like that. I hope to see you again.
Definitely.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Oh.
much, Vintat.
You betcha.
So these 3 lines on the back are for our journaling?
Yeah.
That's right. So
Okay.
each column is available after the casting.
Okay.
Yep.
Perfect sense. I was just clarifying that.
Yeah, you betcha.
And so our next class for sigilization, what is today? Today is Monday. So it will be next Tuesday. Yeah?
Tuesday. Correctamundo.
Awesome. And today is the 4th. Okay, so next class is going to be April 12th at the exact same time.
Yep.
Okay.
And we'll do the that's the review or the best of Big Chief. Now, based on hopefully we have anyone who has taken this class at all come in and share a little bit about their experience with it, even would be nice. So I'll go ahead and make a post for the divination group and a reminder closer to the date saying, hey, if you've taken any of this series, please show up for the best of Big Chief and share whatever you would like about the process that you went through with this, whether it be the casting, whether it be whatever. And